There's something uniquely terrifying about the mundane. Ghosts aren't supposed to linger in the places where we make coffee, fold laundry, or check emails. But they do. The worst hauntings are not in abandoned asylums or ancient graveyards, they're in the homes we convince ourselves are safe. This is the story of how my home turned against me. It started with a whisper. Not the kind that comes from a draft under the door or the pipes settling in the walls. No, this was different. It had intention. Purpose. Malice. I first heard it on a Monday night, the kind of night where exhaustion presses into your bones. My wife, Lisa, had already gone to bed, and I was in the kitchen rinsing the last of the dishes. The house was still. Too still. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed muted, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Then, from somewhere just beyond the edge of hearing, a voice. He doesn't see. I froze. The sound had been soft, like a breath against my ear, yet it came from nowhere. I turned, half expecting Lisa to be behind me, playing a cruel joke. But the kitchen was empty. The house was empty. A trick of the mind, I told myself. Fatigue. I shut off the light and made my way upstairs, not realizing that the whisper had been just the beginning. The next few days, small things went missing: keys, phone chargers, a single shoe from a pair. I blamed Lisa at first, then my own forgetfulness. But on Thursday, I saw it. It was past midnight. And I had woken up, throat dry, desperate for a drink of water. As I made my way down the dark hallway, I noticed something odd. The shadows weren't right. The hallway was dimly lit by the glow from the bathroom nightlight, yet a deeper darkness pooled near the bedroom door. It wasn't a trick of the eyes. This shadow had weight, presence. It moved. A slow, deliberate shift, like someone standing in the dark, watching. I felt my breath catch. I wanted to call out, but instinct locked my throat. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to turn. To run. And then, the whisper came again. He still doesn't see. A jolt of adrenaline shot through me. I lunged for the bedroom door, slammed it shut, and pressed my back against it, heart hammering. Lisa stirred. "What are you doing?" I swallowed hard. I thought I saw something. She sighed, rolling over. "Go back to sleep." But I didn't. Because I had seen something. And worse, something had seen me. The next morning, I told myself it was a dream. A half-sleep hallucination. The mind plays tricks in the dark. But deep inside, I knew better. The house had changed. The air felt heavier, charged with something unseen, something waiting. The silence wasn't just absence of sound, it was expectant. Watching. I tried to shake it off, but then something happened that I couldn't ignore. I was in the bathroom, shaving, half listening to the muffled sounds of Lisa moving around downstairs. Steam from the shower curled against the mirror, fogging its surface. As I wiped it clean, my reflection stared back at me. Except, it didn't. For the briefest moment, my reflection lagged. A fraction of a second too slow. My hand moved to my face. But in the mirror, the motion was delayed. The difference was subtle, almost imperceptible, but my stomach dropped. And then, it smiled. I didn't. My own face, my own mouth, curved into a slow, unnatural grin while I remained frozen in horror. The room tilted. My vision swam. My breath came in shallow gasps. Then, as if nothing had happened, the reflection snapped back to normal. My face mirrored my terror-stricken expression perfectly. I stumbled back, knocking my razor into the sink with a clatter. My skin prickled with cold, sweat beading on my forehead. I refused to look at the mirror again. That evening, Lisa and I sat at the dinner table, eating in near silence. I pushed my food around my plate, my appetite hollowed out by unease. Lisa noticed. "You've been acting weird all day." I hesitated. I wanted to tell her, about the whispering, the shadow, the mirror. But I knew how it would sound. She was pragmatic, logical. She'd dismiss it as stress, exhaustion. So I just shook my head. "Didn't sleep well last night." Lisa sighed and stood to clear the plates. As she reached for my dish, she suddenly froze. Her eyes locked onto the chair at the far end of the table. A single plate sat there. A plate I hadn't set. She frowned. "Did you?" I shook my head slowly. We stared at the plate. At the untouched food sitting on it. The chair was pulled out, as if someone had been sitting there, eating with us. A chill traced its fingers down my spine. Without a word, Lisa picked up the plate. Dumped the food in the trash, and shoved it deep into the sink. Neither of us spoke about it. But from that night on, I knew she felt it too. We were not alone. That night, sleep felt impossible. Every creak of the house sent jolts of paranoia through me. Lisa, exhausted, had fallen asleep quickly, but I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening. At some point, I drifted into a restless half-sleep. Then I woke up. Not because of a sound, because of the absence of one. The house was too quiet. The kind of silence that presses against your ears. Swallowing everything. And then, beneath it, I heard something. Breathing. Not Lisa's. Not mine. Something else. Slow, rhythmic, too deliberate to be the house settling. It was coming from the far corner of the room. A heavy exhale. Inhale. Exhale. I turned my head, slowly, painfully, toward the corner. And I saw it. Not fully. Just the shape. A darker patch of black against the shadows, hulking and unmoving. The kind of darkness that doesn't belong. I didn't dare move. The breathing continued. Deep, steady, unfazed. As if it had been there all along. Watching. Then, ever so slightly, it shifted. The bed creaked under my weight as I tensed, muscles locking up. It knew I was awake. The whisper came again. So close I could feel the breath on my skin. "He sees now." And then, nothing. The air went still. The weight in the room lifted. The shadow was gone. Lisa stirred beside me, sighing in her sleep. I turned to her, to the safety of something familiar, something human. But I knew it wasn't over. Because I had seen it. And worse, it had seen me. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to keep this to myself anymore. Lisa was already at work when I picked up my phone and called the only person I thought might believe me, my older sister, Claire. She answered on the third ring. "Hey, everything okay?" I hesitated, suddenly feeling ridiculous. How do you tell someone your house is haunted? That your own reflection isn't yours anymore? I exhaled. Have you ever felt like something was wrong with this house? Silence. A long one. Why? Claire's voice was careful, measured. I swallowed. Strange things have been happening. Voices. Shadows. I don't know how to explain it. Another pause. Then, quietly, she said, "I always felt it too." A chill swept over me. What? When we were kids, Claire murmured, I used to hear someone whispering at night. I thought it was my imagination, but it never stopped. When I told Mom, she said it was just the house settling. Goosebumps erupted across my arms. There's something else, she added. After Mom died, I found something in her old things. My throat tightened. What? A police report. I sat up straighter. A report about what? Claire's next words sent a shudder through me. The previous owners. I gripped the phone. Claire, just tell me. She hesitated. Then, in a hushed voice, she said. They disappeared. The whole family. No sign of a break-in. No signs of struggle. The police found the house perfectly intact, except for one thing. My skin prickled. What? There was a dinner table set for one extra person. The line crackled in my ear. My blood turned to ice. A plate. A chair. An extra place at the table. Just like last night. A slow, suffocating dread coiled in my stomach. This thing, whatever it wasn't new. And it wasn't leaving. The moment I hung up with Claire, a deep unease settled over me. I stood in the center of the living room, my fingers numb around my phone. The house wasn't just haunted, it had history. I needed answers. I started in the basement. The air down there was different, stale, heavy. Dust clung to every surface. Boxes of old holiday decorations and forgotten junk lined the walls, but I wasn't looking for that. I was looking for something older. Something hidden. I ran my fingers along the brick wall, feeling for inconsistencies. The moment my hand passed over a loose brick, a sharp chill ran up my arm. I pressed against it, and the brick shifted. Behind it, something was wedged into the hollow space. A piece of brittle, yellowed paper. I pulled it out carefully and unfolded it. My breath catching in my throat. It was a page from an old notebook, the ink faded but legible. Scrawled across it, over and over, was a name. Jonas. 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 Each repetition grew more frantic, the handwriting deteriorating into erratic scratches. I turned the page over, my pulse hammering. In the same, jagged script. For words had been scratched into the paper. Jonas is still here. That night, I told Lisa everything. I expected her to laugh, to roll her eyes, to tell me I was being paranoid. But she didn't. Instead, she swallowed hard and said, I think I've seen him too. A cold shudder rippled through me. Lisa hesitated, then reached for my hand. I didn't want to scare you, but, the past few nights. I've been waking up at exactly 3:12 a.m. Every time, I feel like there's someone standing at the foot of the bed. She exhaled shakily. But last night, I finally looked. The room felt too quiet. Lisa's voice dropped to a whisper. I saw two shadows. I frowned. Two. She nodded. One was yours. She swallowed. The other wasn't. Goosebumps prickled my skin. I thought maybe it was a trick of the light, Lisa murmured. But then. She stopped, glancing toward the hallway. Then what? I pressed. She closed her eyes for a moment. As if trying to push the memory away. Then, barely above a whisper, she said. The second shadow moved closer. I barely slept that night. Something was in our home. Not a vague presence. Not a collection of unexplained sounds, something real. Watching. Waiting. And it had a name. Jonas. The next morning, I tore through every old record I could find on our house. Deed transfers. News archives. I searched for anything that mentioned a Jonas. I found only one. Jonas Whitmore. A man who had lived in the house nearly 80 years ago. He was never found. The report was vague, just a brief mention of his unexplained disappearance. No foul play. No witnesses. Just, gone. But then, another detail caught my eye. Jonas Whitmore hadn't lived alone. He had a brother. And his brother's body was found inside the walls of the house. My stomach turned. The walls. I thought about the whispering, the way the house seemed to breathe. I thought about the shadow Lisa had seen, moving closer. I thought about the extra plate at the table. And then, somewhere deep within the house, I heard a knock. Not from the door. From inside the walls. The knock came again. A dull, deliberate thud, slow and measured. It wasn't the sound of pipes. It wasn't the house settling. It was inside the walls. Lisa and I stood frozen in the living room, eyes locked on each other, waiting for the next knock. It came. And then another. Steady. Rhythmic. Knock. 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 My skin crawled. It wasn't random. It was a pattern. Lisa grabbed my arm, her fingers ice cold. Please tell me you hear that. I nodded slowly. It's coming from the hallway. We turned together, eyes fixed on the long, dim corridor leading to our bedroom. And then, we saw it. The attic pull string was swinging. Neither of us had touched it. Lisa's breath hitched. No. But we both knew what had to be done. I grabbed the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, a heavy flashlight, and, with trembling fingers, reached for the string. The moment I pulled, the attic door snapped down with a loud creak. Yawning open like a gaping mouth. A blast of cold air spilled down from the darkness above. The knock had stopped. Silence. Lisa gripped my wrist. Don't. I hesitated. Then, from above. Shuffle. A sound. Not a rat. Not the house shifting. Something was up there. Every instinct screamed at me to shut the attic door, to pretend we had never heard the knocking. Never found Jonah's name in the wall, never felt that unseen presence lurking in the corners of our home. But we had. And now, it knew we were listening. Holding my breath, I stepped onto the ladder. The old wood groaning under my weight. Lisa stayed below, whispering, "Please don't go up there." I didn't answer. The attic was suffocatingly dark. My flashlight beam cut through the thick dust. Revealing wooden beams, stacks of forgotten boxes, nothing unusual. But the air was wrong. It had weight, density. Then, the smell hit me. Rot. Like something had been left to decay for years. I swallowed against the bile rising in my throat and aimed the flashlight toward the far corner. And that's when I saw it. A crawlspace. A narrow, makeshift door in the attic wall. Slightly ajar. Something had been in there. And something had come out. I stepped closer, gripping the flashlight so tightly my knuckles ached. The wooden boards beneath me felt soft, as if rotting from within. Then, just as I reached the crawlspace, the whisper returned. "He's still here." From behind me. I whirled around. And the attic door slammed shut. When I woke up, I was on the floor of the hallway. Lisa was shaking me, her face pale with fear. "What happened?" "You were gone for hours." I blinked, disoriented. Hours? My head throbbed. The last thing I remembered was the attic door slamming, then nothing. Lisa helped me sit up, her hands shaking. "I heard the door slam, but when I called for you, you didn't answer." I tried to pull it open, but it wouldn't budge. Then suddenly, her voice cracked. "You were just here. On the floor. Like you had fallen out of nowhere." I stared at her. My mind struggling to process. "I called your name over and over," she whispered. "But you never answered." Goosebumps erupted over my arms. Because I had answered. Or at least, I thought I had. Somewhere, in the dark, I had screamed for her. But she never heard me. And in that missing time, something had been with me. Something that wasn't Jonas. Something worse. I didn't sleep that night. Lisa lay curled beside me, her breathing shallow, her body tense even in sleep. But I couldn't close my eyes. Because every time I did, I saw it. The thing in the attic. The memory was fractured. Like shattered glass, but I knew one thing, I hadn't been alone up there. Something had been waiting in the dark. Something that wanted me to forget. And for a while, it had succeeded. But memories have a way of slipping back in. At around 3:12 a.m., I got up to splash cold water on my face. The house was silent, the kind of silence that didn't feel empty but full. As I turned off the faucet, I glanced up at the mirror. And my reflection didn't move. My heart seized in my chest. I lifted my hand. The reflection did not. Then, slowly, unervingly, it smiled. I didn't. It was my face, but it wasn't me. The grin stretched too wide, too unnatural, exposing too many teeth. The skin around the mouth cracked, splintering open like old leather. I stumbled back. The reflection did not. It watched. Then, in a voice that wasn't quite mine, it whispered. "You brought me back." And then, it moved. Not like a mirror image. Not like me. It leaned forward. Like something on the other side of the glass trying to step through. The light flickered. And the thing in the mirror lunged. I don't remember screaming, but I must have. Because the next thing I knew, Lisa was shaking me, her voice frantic. The bathroom was normal. No cracked grin. No moving reflection. Just me. Pale. Shaking. Lisa ran a hand through her hair. Eyes darting between me and the mirror. "Tell me what's happening." I tried to speak, but the words stuck in my throat. Because I finally understood. Jonas wasn't alone. He had never been alone. Something had been trapped in this house with him, something he had tried to keep locked away. And I had let it out. Lisa exhaled, her voice barely above a whisper. "We have to leave." I nodded. But something in the house laughed. Not out loud. Not in a way that could be heard. But in a way that could be felt. The walls shuddered. The house knew. And it wasn't going to let us go. We tried to leave. Lisa grabbed our keys, I threw together a bag of essentials, and we bolted for the front door. But the house wouldn't let us. The moment Lisa twisted the doorknob, the lights flickered. The temperature dropped so fast my breath turned to mist. And then, bang! The door slammed shut on its own. Lisa yelped, stumbling back. I grabbed the knob, yanking with all my strength. It wouldn't budge. Not locked. Not jammed. Held. Behind us, the air shifted. The walls let out a slow, creaking inhale. Like the house itself was breathing. Lisa clutched my arm, her nails digging into my skin. The windows. I nodded. We sprinted toward the kitchen, toward the large window over the sink. Lisa grabbed a chair, lifted it, and slam. The chair stopped mid-air. It hovered, frozen, like something unseen had caught it. Then, with impossible force, it was ripped from Lisa's hands and thrown across the room. Glass rattled. The house shuddered. The whisper came again. "You belong to me now." The voice wasn't Jonas. It was something older. Something hungry. And it had us trapped. There was only one place left to go. The attic. I didn't know why, I just knew. The house had started this in the attic, and that's where it wanted me to go. So I went. Lisa didn't try to stop me this time. She just grabbed my wrist and whispered, "Come back." I didn't answer. The attic ladder groaned under my weight. The air was thick, wrong, like stepping into a vacuum. And then I saw it. The crawlspace. That damn crawlspace, wedged into the farthest corner of the attic, its door slightly ajar. The smell of rot poured from within. And inside. A body. Curled, skeletal, twisted. Skin stretched taut over bones. Clothes long disintegrated. Jonas. His fingers were worn to the bone, as if he had spent years clawing at the walls. And in his other hand. A mirror. Cracked. Blackened. My stomach twisted. Jonas hadn't just been trapped. He had been hiding. Not from the house. Not from death. But from the thing in the mirror. And now, it had me. The whisper came again. Closer. Behind me. You're mine now. And then, hands wrapped around my throat. Darkness swallowed me. I fought. I thrashed. But the hands were strong, cold as death, pulling me backward. Dragging me toward the crawlspace. Jonas had tried to warn me. He had died here, hiding from it. And now, it was my turn. Then. A voice. Not a whisper. Lisa. Let him go. A crash. A shattering. And suddenly, the hands released me. I gasped, collapsing onto the attic floor. My throat burned, my lungs desperate for air. Lisa stood at the top of the ladder, breathing hard. Gripping the cracked mirror. She had smashed it. The attic shook. The walls screamed. A howl of rage filled the air, not from Jonas, but from the thing inside the house. It wasn't just a ghost. It was something else. Something that had been feeding. And now, it was dying. Lisa grabbed my hand. Run. We tore down the attic ladder, sprinted for the front door. And this time, it opened. The house let out one final, horrible breath. And then. Silence. We never went back. We sold the house. Moved across the city. But sometimes, late at night, I still wake up at 3:12 a.m. And I feel it. The whisper in the dark. The shadow in the corner. And sometimes. When I look in the mirror. I see a smile that isn't mine. The house still stands. A new family lives there now. A couple with a young son. I wonder if they hear the whispers. I wonder if they've set an extra place at the table. And I wonder. If they've checked the attic. Because some doors, once opened. Can never be closed again.